If you put your finger in the barrel of a gun, some people think it would stop the bullet and make the barrel explode. But that's not completely true. Doing this would easily shatter your finger as the bullet continued on. To really stop the bullet, you shouldn't put your finger there. But if you put your...
If the cow eats blueberries, could the milk come out purple? You see, milk is composed of 90% water. The rest is made up of lactose, fat, and protein, and this causes its white color. So if a cow eats 39mm bullets, it could become a Kalashnikov automatic rifle.
Always start from a corner. This doubles your chances of winning. If your opponent also starts from a corner, use the opposite corner from where you started. He will block the center, so use the last available corner. This way, you will have 2 ways to win. But if your opponent starts from the center after your initial move, then use a German sticky grenade. If you use cotton swabs to clean your ears, be careful. Many people use cotton swabs without knowing how dangerous they can be. Not only can they cause infections, but when you use a cotton swab, you push the earwax deeper into the ear, which can cause pain. Instead, use a flak 18 to 36/88 mm.
If you are trapped in a room with walls that are closing, first, breathe and look for a red button. If you can't find one, try using your body to push the walls. If that doesn't work either, cover yourself with baby oil so you can slide like a fucking worm. But be careful. You may not always land where you want to. Hello there. When you flip a coin, most people believe they have a 50-50 chance of getting heads or tails. But in reality, this is not the case. When you flip a coin, you have a 49% chance of getting either side. You may wonder what the remaining 2% is. Well, that small percentage is nothing more than if you took out all the bones in your body and replaced them with a Lego skeleton. Could you still walk? Removing the bones from your body is technically possible, but you would look like my bulldog's nuts. However, if you managed to replace them with a Lego skeleton, you probably wouldn't even be able to stand up.
Which came first, the chicken or the egg? Some people say the egg because it already existed in the time of the dinosaurs, and others say the chicken, born from a mutation in a semi-chicken egg. But if the egg created the chicken and the chicken created the egg, then who started it all? Actually, it came first.
Stephen Hawking with double miniguns and nuclear rockets.
Wearing headphones for too long is dangerous. You see, they can cause deformation of the head due to the pressure created to keep them in place, which can turn you into a Discord moderator. But here's how to avoid this problem. When you play, take your cat, then load it with 9mm bullets. After that, do you know how to spin a basketball correctly? The secret is in the rotation of the ball. So, first place it in the center of your palm, throw it gently into the air, applying a spin, then immediately position your fingers like an Italian. If that doesn't work, try using a LeBron James with explosiveness. By snapping your fingers, you can ask for anything you want, but only one wish can come true. Now, you would think that girls would wish for things like a new handbag, an expensive accessory, or a new phone, and yes, that would go like this. But for boys, it's different because they go, "What the fuck is happening?"
Start by making a small hole in the lips. This makes it easier to insert the first smaller ring. Once the wound has healed, the ring is removed and a larger one is inserted. This is repeated several times until the desired size is reached. In their beautiful culture, this is a sign of beauty and maturity. Generally, those with the largest rings are seen.
If you get a splinter, most people just go ahead and pull them out. But sometimes they get lodged so deep into your skin that you can't reach them. If the area gets infected, it will start to swell as pus forms under the skin. This creates pressure around the splinter that can sometimes push it upwards towards the skin's surface. And if you're lucky, after a certain period of time, your body could have completely removed it from your skin. When you get stitches, a doctor threads a needle through your wound and pulls it tight to close the skin. As the stitches hold the edges together, the wound becomes inflamed as new cells begin to repair the tissue. Afterwards, connective tissues and collagens start to create skin. Then, blood vessels form to nourish these developing tissues, filling in the area. And over a few weeks, the wound will have healed together and the stitches are removed. Have you ever noticed how odd the McFlurry spoon is? Well, some people think it's supposed to work like a straw, but you only have to try that once to realize it does not work. The true reason for these weird spoons is actually pretty genius. You see, McDonald's didn't want to clean their beaters after every McFlurry, so instead, they designed a spoon that would also work as the mixer. If you somehow removed all of the blood vessels in your body and tied them together, you might think it would be about this long. But the human body has thousands of these tiny vessels that weave in and out of every body part. And with all of them combined, if you started in New York, your blood vessels would make it all the way to the Grand Canyon. It would go on to reach all the way across the Pacific Ocean, over Japan, Asia, and all of Europe. And not only would it make it all the way back to your starting point, but it would be able to make this trip 2 to 4 times over. If you shot a bullet at ancient armor, some people think it could actually stop the impact. But armor like chainmail was designed to block slashing swords. And plate armor was even better at deflecting strikes, by spreading the blunt force across more area, lessening its impact. But these materials weren't very good at stopping arrows, which had enough energy to enter the armor, so a bullet would have no trouble going right through. When a doctor gives you a shot, they can sometimes accidentally push the needle all the way through your vein, which ends up puncturing both sides. Once the needle is removed, it leaves 2 holes in the vein. And before the body can thicken the blood and seal these holes, it bleeds into the surrounding tissues. This leaked blood forms a dark, tender area under the skin, creating bruises and splotchy areas. If you lose one of your adult teeth, the bone where the tooth once was can start to deteriorate. To prevent further damage, a dentist will fill the cavity with a synthetic material that mimics real bone. Once filled, a metal bracket is secured on top and the incision is closed. After the graft has healed, a large implant post is inserted into the new bone. Then, a small metal piece is screwed in and a porcelain tooth is secured on top. If you accidentally touched a table saw, you'd probably think your fingers would be cut off. But this isn't always the case. You see, some modern high-end saws actually know the difference between wood and your skin. Once your finger comes in contact with these special saws, it immediately detects the electrical conductivity from your skin. This triggers an immediate mechanical response that stops the blade in less than 5 milliseconds. If you plucked out a single strand of your hair, it could hold about 40 pennies without breaking. But if you braid just half of all your hair into a rope, the combined strength could hold up a large SUV. And if you add in all of your hair into the rope, it could withstand about 15 metric tons, which is about the weight of a young gray whale. If you're trapped in the trunk of a vehicle, you should immediately start searching for the glow-in-the-dark release hatch. If you don't see the latch, don't panic. Trunks are not airtight, so there's no risk of running out of oxygen. Try feeling around the edges of the trunk for a handle. This may allow you to release the seat back. As a last resort, kick out one of the brake lights. This small opening will allow you to signal for help. Have you ever wondered about this little dangly thing at the back of your throat? Well, even though it looks like a miniature punching bag, it actually serves a handful of important functions. You see, when you swallow food, this thing called a uvula actually swings backwards to prevent the food from going up your nose. It's also constantly producing saliva to keep the throat moist, which aids in swallowing. And because there's a tiny muscle inside the uvula, it can move around, which helps you speak. Have you ever wondered why the letter E isn't used to grade? Teachers use A, B, C, D, and F, but they skip E. Why is this? Well, the answer is actually pretty simple. You see, back in the day, schools did use the letter E, but in the 1930s, they decided to stop after students and parents thought that it meant excellent. It was quickly replaced with F, because F for failed made more sense. The army ant is placed on the wound and positioned so its jaws clamp tightly on the edges, securing them together. Then the ant's body is twisted off, leaving its head and mandibles in place, which acts as a stitch. More are added depending on the size of the wound, and these ant stitches are left in the skin until the edges of the wound stay closed on their own. If you chip a piece off of your tooth, a dentist might shave down the surrounding area. Then a bonding material that matches your tooth color is applied and shaped to match the original appearance. Once the shape is near perfect, a special light hardens the material, making it as durable as the tooth. Finally, the dentist polishes the tooth to blend it seamlessly with the others. They opened the pallet of ammunition only to find it was full of Tootsie Rolls. You see, Tootsie Roll was a code name for mortar rounds, which the Marines desperately needed. But the radio operator who received the order didn't know that and sent the actual candy instead. At first, the Marines were angry, but the sub-freezing temperatures had frozen all their food, and the candies ended up sustaining them over the next few days. They even used them to plug bullet holes by warming them up and letting them freeze in place. And eventually, the real mortar rounds did arrive. When you use a derma roller, it pushes a bunch of tiny needles into your face, creating small punctures across the surface. Your brain perceives these small holes as wounds, which triggers your body's natural healing response. The body then sends out cells to make collagen and elastin, which helps your skin stay firm and stretchy. Over time, these cells strengthen the skin, giving a firmer and more youthful appearance. Imagine waking up in a coffin and realizing that you were mistakenly buried alive. Now, this wouldn't happen with the medical guidelines we have today, but in the 19th century, old coffins were found with scratch marks on the inside, making this a legitimate concern. So as a solution, they started adding strings inside the coffins that traveled up to the ground and were connected to a little bell. And if you woke up underground in a coffin, you could just ring the bell, signaling that you're still alive. If you stepped on a World War II landmine, 3 prongs hidden just beneath the surface would immediately sense the pressure. This pressure would release a striker pin, activating a fuse. Then, an initial explosion propels the mine upwards, reaching about waist height. In the air, the fuse reaches the main charge inside, causing the mine to explode. The casing shatters, ejecting metal fragments at high speed in all directions. If you swallowed a watermelon seed, some people think that it could potentially sprout in your stomach, meaning you'd literally be growing a watermelon inside of you. Now, this is obviously not true. Your stomach acid would dissolve the seed before it had time to grow. But there was a case of a man who swallowed a pea that ended up going down the wrong way. And months later, after being rushed to the hospital because of breathing problems, a doctor discovered that the pea had been ingested in the man's lung. And because lungs are warm and moist, the pea was able to split open and sprout into a plant. The soldier's foot would break through a hidden bamboo slat and into a hole if they stepped onto a cartridge trap. Inside, a bullet was positioned on top of a nail that was fastened to a wooden board. And when the soldier's foot hit this shell, it pushed the nail into the primer. This caused the shell to suddenly explode and shoot back up at the soldier.
A female security officer was doing her duty at the airport when suddenly an old man appeared with a knife. He grabbed her by the hair and held her hostage at knife point. Other officers rushed in, but couldn't do anything since he threatened to stab her if anyone came closer. Terrified and trembling, the woman stood frozen in fear, until one brave man stepped forward. He calmly spoke to the attacker, asking him to release the woman and take him instead. Shockingly, the old man agreed and let her go. And while the attacker was distracted, in that split second, the brave man grabbed the knife with his bare hands. The moment was all the security team needed. They swarmed in at once, tackling the suspect to the ground. This stupid man was throwing rocks at the cars passing by, but nobody wanted to deal with this psycho, so everyone just kept moving. Until he messed with the wrong person, the psycho saw a white car passing on the other side of the road and tried to smash its windshield. First, the driver chose to ignore since the rock missed his car, but then the psycho picked another rock and threw it, hitting the car this time. The driver lost his cool, taking the matter into his own hands, and sent him flying straight to therapy.
Na festa do fim de semana, só rolê bom. Ela chega e desencana com passo bem sou, passo bem sou, passo bem sou. Na festa do fim de semana.
While this man was about to leave with his groceries, two robbers had sneaked inside. Suddenly, one of them pulled out a gun on the storekeeper, but before things could get worse, the man reacted quickly and grabbed the weapon, turning the tables on the robbers. He wrestled the gunman to the ground and held him in a chokehold, while the other robber panicked and ran for his life. Pinning down the robber, he even managed to fix the jammed gun and waited for the police to arrive while the robber begged for mercy. Two robbers saw an opportunity too good to miss. While this young man was riding his bike on the way home, he suddenly heard some loud noises. As he turns around to check it out, he saw two robbers chasing him, and one of them holding a freaking machete in an arm. He slammed the brakes in panic. Before he knew it, one robber blocked his path, and the other one swung the machete to scare him, as if he was about to strike. The kid froze in fear and sat down on the ground, hoping the robbers will spare him. But right across the street, in a parked car, a man had been watching, waiting for the right moment. And just when the robber was about to take off with the young man's bike, the man dashed out, sneaking up from behind and knocked down the robber with a flying kick. The other robber panicked and ran away, thinking he might be next. An 80-year-old man slipped while cleaning his window, and in an instant, he fell outward. Somehow he caught the ledge, clinging on for life. People on the street looked up in shock, but no one could help. The man was too high, and his grip was weakening second by second. Then suddenly, from the crowd, a brave man stepped forward. Without a thought for his own safety, he grabbed onto the building's pipeline and began climbing. With nothing but his bare hands, he pulled himself floor after floor. He pushed upward as the crowd held its breath. By the time he reached the fourth floor, the old man was barely holding on. The hero tried pushing him inside, but it didn't work. So, without hesitation, he swung himself into the apartment and with all his strength pulled the old man to safety, proving that humanity is still alive. A father and son were taking a walk one evening, when a car suddenly pulled up and blocked their path. Two men got out of the vehicle, and by pushing the father aside, they went straight for the son. Sensing danger, the father immediately ran to the driver's seat. After some struggle, those men forced the kid inside the car's trunk, but just when they were about to drive away, they realized that the car has already been driven off by the father. Survived not once, but twice. This man was gliding through traffic, rushing because he was already late for office. As he reached a busy intersection, the signal turned red, but he jumped it, hoping to save a few seconds. Suddenly, a red car crossed the road, and in panic, he hit the brakes. His bike slipped, crashing straight into the red car, and he slid past the tiny space between two moving cars, missing death by inches.